all the people that have organized this and put this together, brought us all together today to share about our experiences with college and academic and professional career choices that we have, that you all have, and that many of us have been making along the way on our paths. Cool. Well, Aislinn, I'll let you introduce yourself and I'll make connections.
Yeah. So my name is Aislinn Rookwood. As Gina, I refer to her as Gina, but mentioned,
It's because my last name's so hard.
Yeah, Dr. Idoate, or Gina, or Regina. That's a lot of. So yeah, I actually come from two places. So my mother lives in Phoenix, Arizona. So I spent a lot of my early childhood there. And then in my teenage years, I moved to Polson, Montana, which is a pretty small town on the Flathead Reservation. I graduated from high school there, and then I went to Montana State University in Bozeman, Montana for my first year. It snowed way too much for me there. So I moved back to Arizona, and I went to the University of Arizona, where I got my bachelor's in public health with a focus on environmental health. And so I also kind of, at one point, considered doing a double major in soil and water science. But then I decided to pursue a master's in public health. So I decided not to stay an additional year and finish that degree. And so I did my master's in public health with, again, focus in environmental health at the University of Arizona. And then I moved to Omaha, Nebraska for my family. And now I'm at the University of Nebraska Medical Center studying my PhD in health promotion, specifically wanting to look at children's environmental health and how children are impacted by environmental exposures. Because oftentimes we find that children bear kind of the brunt of that. And so we see it, especially here in Nebraska, when we think about pediatric cancer rates, which are some of the highest in the country. Asthma rates are some of the highest in the country in Omaha. There's a lot of things. We have a super fun site actually in Omaha that a lot of people are not aware of or never heard of for lead. So there was a big lead contamination in Omaha, Nebraska, and it was 10 times the amount of exposure that children have suffered in Flint. So that's kind of where I'm at, and that's why I'm here today. I work with Dr. Idoate on youth and joint science. Yeah, Gina, okay. On youth and joint science, and we're kind of going to talk about that a little bit more later.
Thanks, Aislinn. These are the little clickers. Show pictures too, which I have to say I'm very grateful because Aislinn and I just got back from the American Indigenous Research Association conference up in Polson, Montana, Salish Kootenai territory. But I left my computer on the plane. Yeah, right? You can all feel my pain. So, did you get it back? Not yet. Not yet.
It's a small airport.
It's still to be determined if I'm even going to get it back. Yeah. So one major strategy: back up your stuff in the clouds on external hard drives, because if you don't, you'll be relying on your colleagues for all like previous things. So Aislinn's sharing her computer and helped me put pictures together today. And I don't have all the pictures I would really like to share with you because I think they're in Missoula, Montana airport, or they said maybe in Texas. So who knows? Yeah. Well, I'll let you know though when it comes back to me, and I'll have a lot more pictures to share with you all. And maybe we'll get pictures from today. So my name is Regina Idoate, which is my married name. I just got married this summer. So that's exciting. So thank you. It took me 43 years. And it's been really fun learning, like sharing pronunciation of my new last name with people. But my husband is Basque, so he's indigenous from northern Spain. Southern France is the Basque territory. So Idoate is a Basque name, which means the room above, actually. And my family's name, the name that I had previously was Robbins. but my dad was adopted, so it's not really my family's name, so I don't feel as attached to that as I do my family and our stories and my new family now, the Idoates. But I do want to share a little bit about where I'm from. You all, I'm grateful that you are open to share where you're from and what your interests are. So I grew up in Southern California, but I'm a citizen of Cherokee Nation of Oklahoma. My mom and dad are both Cherokee people, and my great-grandmother was a teacher, and my grandmother was an artist, and my mother is a nurse. So as you see the work that I get to do, hopefully that will all kind of make sense, because of a lot of what I get to do is related to all that's been passed down to me. And my great-great 7 times grandmother was an Yankee Ward. Her picture's up there, only because it's accessible through the internet right now, because I have it on my computer. But she was known as a beloved Cherokee woman who was a negotiator for the Cherokee people and a peacemaker. And I think a lot of what we get to do as Indigenous scholars and students in a Western academy is a lot of that, a lot of negotiating, right? A lot of peacemaking, a lot of working with what we know and what the school system teaches, right? And their ways and our ways, and a lot of people talk about, walking in these two worlds. But I think a lot of what we're doing and these strategies that we need to have is really coming back to that negotiating it too, right? Figuring out a lot of it's language, a lot of it's how we talk about things, how we present things, and then also knowing who we are and where we're from to back ourselves on what our stories are. So I've been in school. I was in school for a very long time, which I know Gabe relates to. Dr. Brewer. I was in college for 20 years, and I'm not exaggerating. How many of you like school? Cool. Yeah, I see smiles, maybe not a hand going up, but some people resonate with that. I really liked school. I like learning, and when I figured out that I could learn about things that were interesting to me or that were really meaningful and had a lot of purpose to them, that I could, bring that to whatever work I'm doing, or even into my personal life, and I could grow from that it became really meaningful. So I stayed in school for a long time. So I started off in Arizona, at Arizona State, and studied psychology, and then I ended up studying Spanish language and culture because I had gone to Spain to live there. Really appreciated it, and I grew up with a lot of Spanish language influence around me. But being from New Mexico, that's just common. So then I ended up, I was really stressed in graduate school, very stressed out, very overwhelmed, had a lot of anxiety, and I couldn't quite figure out how to process all of that and deal with all of that. And then I found that exercise really helped me. So I started running a lot, and I ran cross country, and then I started practicing some yoga, and that helped me a lot. And just different kind of contemplative practices and spiritual practices too that got me through that time. So I thought, well, that's something that's really important to me. So then I came to Nebraska to study Christian spirituality. So that's how I ended up here. I went to Creighton and did a master's degree in Christian spirituality just because it was important to me. And I felt like I was studying all these things, and the thing that was most important to me, which is my spirituality, was not something that I had dedicated my academic career to. So I did that, and then I ended up finding out that the University of Nebraska Medical Center had a program in Preventive and Societal Medicine, which is really what I was interested in and what I wanted to work in. So I ended up then transitioning into that program to study spiritual wellness overall, from a cultural perspective, from a traditional perspective, as well as religious. So that was what I studied in my doctoral research. And that then led me, of course, to taking more classes and studying Native American Studies. So I did a graduate minor at UNO in Native American Studies, and then studied Maternal and Child Health at U of A. So that's how Aislinn and I got connected. And then I got to go teach. So my whole life I grew up going to Indian Health Service clinics in California and Phoenix. And that was always my dream, was I wanted to work for IHS. That was what I wanted to do. I knew that. So I thought, well, if I just get a degree, then I can get my foot in the door, you know? So I went through all the schooling and ended up finding that I really loved teaching. So then I went to New Mexico, Danielle, and I targeted this school, Northern New Mexico College. It's a Native American serving institution and also Hispanic or Latino serving institution. So I targeted it and kept looking for jobs there. And eventually I got a job there, and I got to teach there in their Pueblo Indian Studies program, as well as in their College of Education, and work with Native students, which was incredibly rewarding to me. At the same time, I got to work at Institute of American Indian Arts. Are any of you familiar with that? Yeah. The New Mexicans are. But that's in Santa Fe, New Mexico. A lot of incredible students, scholars, Native artists have gone through that school and continue to. So there's a lot of great work coming out of IAIA. And I was really grateful to be a part of it. That's kind of my academic journey, and then there was no straight path. So we were even like working on the icons of where they go, but they're all interrelated, and it was, you know, sometimes in 3 schools at one time, just because, bless you, Crystal. So just because it's hard to find what we need in one place, you know. So it's important that we're looking at other options and other, like, not only in academic institutions, but in our community organizations, in institutions like, say, IHS, or health departments. So I think that's one thing to take away, is that our education isn't just all siloed into a university, a 4-year institution, you know, or our college, the colleges that you're in right now. There's so many ways of knowing and ways of learning for us. So with that said, one thing that I've learned, have any of you seen this before? Yeah. So this is a Native wellness model. So there are many wellness models out there, and you'll probably, if you look up UNL will have a wellness model and give you a bunch of dimensions to break down, like, what is wellness, you know, as students. What do we need to care about to keep ourselves well, so that we can study, so that we can show up in class at 8 o'clock in the morning on a Friday? So what does that take? So UNL or UNO or UNMC, they have these wellness models, right? And they actually break it down into 8 different dimensions. So they consider, like, occupational health, like your career, your jobs, whether it's construction, right, or business, or environmental studies. So there's actually, like, a level of wellness within what it is we want to dedicate ourselves to. But then there's intellectual wellness, emotional wellness, social wellness, spiritual wellness. Of course, physical wellness, which is something we all often immediately think of, right? And there's financial wellness. That's something we don't often talk about. But all of these components go into that institutional model of wellness. But what I want to share with you is this is one of many Native wellness models. So this is one that I come back to, and I think it's important when we think about, well, what are our strategies, you know, to really be successful in a 4-year institution, which is different. We're away from everyone. I mean, it's hard. It's hard being away from home. It's hard being away from our families and not having those connections and support systems close by, you know, in that moment that we need it. So how can we build up our support system, and what are those strategies? And what I come back to is thinking through this in a multidimensional way, but thinking about, well, what are our strategies for really promoting mental wellness, right? So when we look at the native wellness model is thinking about, I mean, part of it is intellect, right? Part of it is that studying and going to school and working hard to train our brains, right, to learn things and apply those things. But then another piece of that is our emotional wellness too. And then included in that is memory. What does memory make you think of? How could memory support you?
Your past, or like whatever happened in the past that may be happening.
Yeah.
And peace of mind in the future gives you comfort.
Thanks, Danielle. Yeah, absolutely. So we have all of our memories that can be connected to very positive things that we can revisit to give us strength, right? And even our parents' memories or our grandparents' memories, the stories that have been shared with us that can encourage us, you know? The wisdom that's given to us through memories can be an enormous strength. So that's part of that mental wellness piece. Judgment is kind of like having that right mindset, right, to make good choices and do things in a good way. And then life experience. So life experience is also related to memories, but what have we experienced that we can come back to that can help guide us down that path? Well, I did this time and that didn't work out so well, right? So now I think I'll try this. And that's kind of been what kept leading me down different paths, to different colleges, to study different things, to eventually end up in a place where I actually get to work in those things. So what I didn't tell you is what I get to do. So I work in health promotion, and I do a lot of work in medical humanities, which is something most people have never heard of. So I work with the arts and medicine, like portraiture in medicine, poetry in medicine, different, like, storytelling in medicine. How can those things be healing? And what does that look like? What is that process? What are the outcomes? So I study that. I also do a lot of work in workforce development, like the work we get to do with all of you to promote Native youth in the sciences, leading to careers in healthcare professions specifically, but I've also done that specific to the field of education. And then do some research on cancer specific to Native populations, and lots of other kind of work in maternal and child health around spirituality and pregnancy loss. It just kind of depends. I mean, the studies that I get to work on change each year, but the cool thing is that what you prepare yourself for ends up finding opportunities to plug into things, you know? So what's so important is that you are preparing for what you're interested in right now, right? Are any questions about mental wellness and a four-year institution? No? So, yeah, any question? No? Lots of smiles. So one thing that I found, I'm just here to give strategies. So some of the strategies that I had to keep strong mental wellness would be to go home. You know, go home when I can and visit and spend time, like go for a long weekend when I can figure it out, and come back. But to go home and recharge sometimes. Sometimes I often needed to not just go home, but go get outdoors, be outdoors, spend time away, you know, reconnect to get grounded in those ways. Another way is through resources on campus. You know, there's counseling centers. So counseling is available. There's tutoring centers. There's like specifically math tutoring centers, which are incredible. Writing tutoring centers. So if you have a paper due, you know, look at the resources that are out there. At every college I've gone to and college I've worked at, we've had student, like American Indian or Native student associations, which has been a really incredible support because you have that sense of family within your campus. And to me, that was something that really helped me get through that. And then I also like to take advantage of the Wellness Center because it offers classes that can kind of burn out some of that anxiety or frustration or stress. Do you want to add anything as a current student?
So I think one of the things that Gina mentioned first finding a place that you can recharge and really knowing that place. So thinking through for yourself, like if that's home, if there's a specific place at home. So I know like for me, in Polson, it's on the Flathead Lake. Water means a lot to me. Being near the water means a lot to me. Unfortunately, I don't think I really realized how important that was to me until like the end of my master's. And so there were times where I was really struggling through school and really knowing like, I don't know what I want to do, I'm changing my mind, I don't think I want to do this, I don't know. And later finding that that's the place that helps me kind of get clarity, going back there and just focusing on me and what's important to me. So identifying those things for yourself and kind of finding that place to recharge and then come back, and it gives you clarity a lot.
Thanks. Yeah, finding a place like that on campus. You know, whether that's a place socially or really a place where you can go and just find some sense of groundedness, centering, comfort. So you're making me think of like, well, where are my places? Like, so when I'm in Omaha, we don't have mountains. You know, there isn't really a place to escape to. But I will go to the park. You know, and just go for a run or spend time with the squirrels or. And then on campus, there are places like at UNMC, we have a Buffett Cancer Center, and there's a beautiful sanctuary on the 4th floor there where you can go in. There's just artwork of nature and some really pretty sculptures, glass sculptures, and it's quiet, and I can go there and sit for a while and recharge. So finding a place like that, because we are, you know, out of what normally recharges us, finding some place within that four-year institution that is a safe place, that is kind of grounding and allows you to just spend some time reconnecting to what matters to you. Yeah, that's important.
So do you work do you work at UNMC then?
I do. Yeah, I don't work here. This is the one school. But I do work with the Center for Great Plains Studies, which is here. So I get to be a part of UNL. And thanks to Dr. Berea, I get to be a part here sometimes too. So, yeah.
The other thing I was going to say is, so you mentioned the student group, but also finding advisors or professors that you connect with is really important. That's really helpful in the process of learning what you want to do and maybe what pathway to get there. So talking to different people, like if you identify someone at a university and you see like, hey, they're really doing something that I want to do, get to know them, talk to them. And sometimes you identify or you connect with professors that don't necessarily do what you exactly want to do, but those are still important relationships and can be really helpful in getting you there.
And from a professor's perspective, it's the same way, like getting to know students that are doing different things is so energizing and exciting because I learn just as much from all of you as you learn from professors, right? So even today, it's like I get to learn from all of you. I learn from Aislinn all the time. I mean, I'm not an environmental scientist, right? All my work's in preventive and societal medicine, spiritual wellness, medical humanities. So I learned so much just by getting to work with people who do different things. So partnering up with people who have skills in different areas can not only introduce us to new things, but also build our strength as a group, because we're not good at everything. I'm not good at everything. I mean, I'm much better, say, at doing a certain kind of research than another kind of research. So sometimes I'll go to colleagues, or when I was a student, right? You work in groups and you find those people who do the things that we're not as good at to kind of fill in the blanks, and then we fill in and plug in our way, and together we're so much stronger. So it's so important to be able to notice what our strengths are too. You know, identify your strengths, what you bring to the table. And then open it up to others, bringing it to the table too, and form a stronger circle together. Thanks. Okay, so then another piece, which I think we all tend to think about when we think about wellness, is the body, right? Physical wellness. When we think about that, we think about, what do we eat? Sometimes people don't even think about sleep being related to physical wellness, but we have found, at UNO I serve on the Wellness Council, and we have been doing research on student health and wellness. And what we have found is that stress and sleep for our students are the two main areas of concern that they've reported, and they're related to each other. So if a student has a low level of quality sleep, then they're likely to have a higher level of stress. So the more sleep, better sleep we can get, the less stress we experience. And that's what we found from our students at UNO. So I don't know about the data here, but that's one thing that I can share with you is to think about that, because it's easy to get in that mode where, oh, I'll just stay up and study. I mean, the one night I stayed up in my undergraduate to study all night, I bombed that test because I couldn't even think straight, you know, and you think you're working so hard, but it's really not working smart, you know, work smarter, not harder. I mean, sleep is so important, and sometimes we don't think about the value of that. And there's a lot more research going on in that area right now because of that. So it's been really interesting. There's a lot of ways to support sleep. There's different exercises you can do, a lot of like yoga postures that can help prepare for sleep, or contemplative practices that can help us sleep better. There's now apps for sleeping support. It's really, yeah, it's interesting. And there's things we can do or not do before, you know, like not have a cup of coffee before you go to sleep, right? So there's certain practices that help us get better sleep. So it's kind of figuring out what works for you in those patterns. And one thing that we know from research that does work is having that pattern of behavior. So going to bed at the same time, you know, a regular bedtime, regular activities, so you train your body and your mind to rest. Any questions? And then when we talk about physical wellness, we also need to think about our age and the condition that our body's in. Every body is unique. Yes?
Sorry, I was wondering if you might address like the way that new habits might form, just train your body to a certain schedule versus another.
If you train it?
Well, yeah, you know, like getting accustomed to waking up earlier, so you get tired earlier, so you know, just go to sleep when you get tired.
Right.
And stuff.
Yeah, so, I mean, basically it comes down to exactly what you said, training ourselves, so establishing that habit. So the more we go to bed at that same time, or get up at that same time every morning. I mean, how many of you use an alarm clock to get up? Yeah, so I don't even use it.
I wake up before it goes off, so.
Yeah, that was my next question. How many of you wake up before it goes off?
Gotcha.
No?
That's a habit.
So that's like, we're training ourselves with that alarm clock, right? I have a dog who wakes me up. She's my alarm clock. But I usually now wake up before she does because I'm just so in that habit. It's just part of our system, right? We've trained our bodies and our minds to do that because it's a habit. It's like how we can like sometimes drive home from somewhere and get into our driveway and go, how did I get here? It's kind of an autopilot thing, you know? Really, has that happened to anyone? Yeah, where it's just like, whoa, I missed those last 3 turns mentally. So that's kind of what we're training our bodies to do. So the more that our neurons, you know, fire together, the more they then wire together, and that just becomes the way we do things. Did you have a question? So now that you're eating? Sorry.
I
was gonna say, my problem right now is I worked graveyard shift for like 5 years. So it makes me feel like it's normal to be up at night and like to get ready to work.
Yeah.
So I don't see no problem with staying up late, but then it makes me have to get up early.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because you've trained your body.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say actually, so I have a less than 1-year-old, and my body has now been trained into bad sleep habits, which I'm trying to break. Because he did not sleep through the night at all up until like 6 months. So kind of going to that training your body and your brain, and you will also form bad sleep habits if you allow yourself to. And then your body will, for a while, it would be like I wake up at 2 a.m. Even when he started sleeping through the night, my body was still like, oh, we're waking up. And so I would struggle to get back to sleep. And then you do find that that also contributes to your stress. So then during the day I'm tired, I'm unable to focus, I'm unable to get all the things that I need to get done, which then causes me more stress. And you can kind of get into this negative cycle where that continues. And so also trying to train yourself to have healthy habits. And that really does play into your physical wellness in the sense that if you exercise, if you do these kind of mindfulness practices, it really do help you be tired when it's time to go to bed, and all kind of connected to each other in a lot of ways. The other big thing I would say is, like at UNMC, out of most four-year institutions that I've been at, they also have intramural sports. So if you're like me, I'm not a gym person. I can't go to the gym and focus and stay like motivated for very long. So I used to go outside a lot. I live really close to the mountains. We go hiking, go do things like that. That's what I really connect to for physical wellness. And so playing intramural sports was really big for me when I was an undergrad. I played volleyball when I was younger, and so that was something that I did. And so that's another opportunity. If you really like sports, and you played sports in high school or maybe even younger, you don't have to be really good, just a way to interact. And I can't tell you how often, like the next day, I would be so sore, like I couldn't even get up. So I call that alive.
Yeah, like my body feels alive, screaming at me.
That's what always is like really intense. Like I'm going to go to the gym 3 times a week for 30 minutes to an hour. You don't have to do that. One of the things that I like to do a lot when the weather gets nice, because we have some brutally cold winters in Omaha, is just walk around. So I'll walk around at lunch, just walk around the neighborhood surrounding UNMC, especially when it starts to get nice and we get a little bit of sunshine. I miss that during the winter sometimes. So that's another thing you can do. It doesn't have to be like a huge commitment that you're making for yourself. Sometimes that also then makes us feel bad. Getting back to that spiritual thing, right? Like if you set yourself up for kind of like almost failure by saying, I'm going to go 3 days a week to the gym
At 5:30 in the morning.
Yeah. See, Gina knows. I've done this to myself several times and I still do it. So it's always learning.
Aislinn has the gym on her calendar sorry for calling you out, every 3 days a week at 5:30 a.m. And I'm always like, wow, she's hardcore.
Let me tell you how many times I get that done.
So I love what you're saying, because I think, if we can integrate this into our days, even just, parking a little further away to walk a little bit more, the more that we can do little things to work it in, the better, the more we can get that physical.
And it's good to set that goal. But, so it's not bad to say, okay, 5:30, I'm going to try to do that. Sometimes I do that just in my home. I'll do that. But then maybe I say, okay, I didn't make it this morning at 5:30. Then at lunchtime, I'll go walk and go to yoga. So we'll even walk to the yoga studio. There's one right next to the university. And so I get it done in that way. It doesn't always have to be the same. It's whatever works.
And setting the goal helps. Setting goals then leads us in that direction, right? Whatever the direction is that we want to go. It starts us on that path. And it may be a slower process to get there, but setting goals around nutrition and sleep and exercise really help us. One thing you mentioned that I want to come back to is that we do train ourselves. We're talking about training healthy behaviors, right? But we can also, like you say, train unhealthy behaviors. So it's these patterns of behaviors. In public health, we call these health behaviors, right? So they're behaviors that we engage in, whether that's exercise or sleep behaviors or brushing our teeth in the morning, whatever it may be, is our health behaviors. So we can also train unhealthy behaviors. So that's another strategy to then avoid those. And we know our own bodies. Every body is different, right? Everybody works different. So once we know what doesn't work for us, what isn't healthy, to avoid those and practice not engaging in those on a regular basis, so we don't train ourselves to depend on those things.
In other words, like don't exercise your demons.
Don't exercise what?
Your demons.
Your demons.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Otherwise, you might grow horns and tails.
Yeah, it's true. And sometimes that's hard because it just surfaces, So how do we work those out? Sometimes it's replacing it with positive behaviors, and then and then it's really figuring out what works for you. What it comes down to, I mean, we can talk about exercise, but ultimately, what is it that works for you? What do you like to do? Like, Kaden, what sports did you play in high school?
Yes.
Basketball and football? So yeah, so that may be different from, like, I played soccer and I ran cross country. So you figure out what works. What is it that really fits me? You can try things on if you're not sure, try playing volleyball or try playing something else or try going for a walk or a run or whatever it may be, right? But figure out, this is the time to figure out what is it that works for me? What do I enjoy? What do I feel good about? What do I feel good at even, So we figure those things out as we go. And that's true about our sleep patterns, true about what we eat. So there's certain things that I can eat that don't bother my system at all, but my husband, watch out. So you know what I mean? Everybody is different. So we figure out what is healthy for us, and then we keep going and working in those patterns and practicing those behaviors to establish that pattern. Yeah, so I think that's also why substance use or abuse is in the physical category, because it is, again, coming back to not feeding those demons, right? Not exercising those or practicing those over and over, because they are harmful, they aren't healthy, they will interfere with our academic success and your success in life. And I think, really from a native wellness model perspective, these are not mutually exclusive, meaning that things that keep us healthy mentally and physically can also be things that keep us healthy spiritually, right? But if we look at spiritual wellness, then we come back to a lot of things that I think we find at home, right? That we don't find at a four-year institution, right? Like ceremony, or being part of a community. But some of those things we can find here. So getting involved in like intertribal student council, or any kind of native student group on campus can be an incredible support spiritually, because we can engage with intertribal students and share our traditions and share our worldviews and share our beliefs so that we do feel a connection and a support system, and can share our spirituality with other people, because that social wellness and spiritual wellness are interrelated. So other things, we can share our stories and teachings, and hopefully there are programs, I'm going to talk a little more about programs in a bit, but there are programs within, if we just look for them, there are programs that can support that, that can bring, like the Mid-American Transportation Center, programs that are bringing this to the institutions, right? And you can be that person too. You can be that person that so along those lines, there's also the opportunity, if you're a religious person, to engage in whatever religious practices work for you. Again, this comes back to who are you? What is it that resonates with you? How were you raised? What do you know? What works for you? And then make sure that you're connecting with that. If it is something that keeps you healthy, that you find that within your institution or within that college community kind of stuff. And then just sharing in all of these pieces that are in the spiritual wellness. And there's a lot more to this. We don't have a ton of time, but I just want to encourage you to keep mindful of these pieces as you go through school, because I think we can get so stuck on the classes, right? The textbook, the exams, right? Our grade point average, our next step, what we're applying for. And sometimes that can really be all of our focus, and we forget about these things that are keeping us healthy and well enough to even go to class, to even be successful in an exam, right? To have a strong application for that next step. And so it all just keeps getting more and more intense as we progress through four-year institutions. And these are pieces that keep us grounded. And ultimately, big picture is what it all comes down to, and that's context. So that comes back to our family in our culture. And really, I mean, from my perspective, so much of it was, I didn't grow up in Oklahoma. I didn't grow up in community. I knew I was Cherokee because of my family. I knew who I was because of growing up in my family, but I grew up in an urban environment, and I didn't know why the way that I thought, or the way that I approached research, or the way that I did things, I didn't understand why it was so different from like most of the students in my classroom, right? So the more that I learned about and studied our ways and our teachings, and really took classes in Native American studies, and got that language to be able to explain and negotiate, the more I was able to, for lack of a better word, defend my ways and do things in a unique way to that Western academy, right? So, like, I do research so differently than almost everyone in my department. I do like art-based research and community-based participatory research and research that's all relational. It all comes down to relationship. And when you think about research, you think of randomized controlled trials, right? And the researcher having nothing to do with the research. It's like this test tube, very controlled thing that you're studying as an outsider. And that is not how I work at all. So part of it is understanding how we work and why we are the way we are, right? And learning about that. And I think so much of at least my generation, and my parents' generation, have been cut off from that. We were denied understanding and teaching and learning about Native history and culture and traditions and language. So we don't just have that easily accessible to us. So if you do, I encourage you to stay with that, hold on to it, and keep growing that, because it's part of what you're doing. It's part of your academic career. It's part of what you're going to write about in your classes. It's part of why you do what you do, why you're studying what you're studying. We can't disconnect that. And that's really been what drove me to keep going, is I just knew this was what I was supposed to do, and I was supposed to do it in this way. But I still have to fight for that. And one major thing that's helped me with that is having Native teachers, having Native mentors who get it, who can back me up, who can support me and explain to another professor, no, this is the way it works, and you're the one that doesn't get it. So that's part of the process too, is finding those support systems that are in those positions that can help you and can support you. And I'm happy to support any of you if you want to reach out and let me know if things come up at school when you have questions about things, or how do I explain this, or how do I say this, I've been working on that for years and years, so I have a lot to share about it. I'm very happy to. Okay, well, it's a lot to talk about, huh? I don't know how to do that. And I've talked about a lot of this. These are some of the organizations that Aislinn and I get to work with and partner with. And so one strategy for a four-year institution that I would suggest is to get to know the community where that campus is. Like, what are the organizations you might be able to work with? So like in Omaha, we have Nebraska Urban Indian Health Coalition. We have the NICE program, which is Native Indigenous Centered Education in Omaha Public Schools. We have a multicultural center. We have Service Learning Academy. That's cool because you get to take classes and work in the community on projects, and really build up projects that are meaningful and get out there and get to know people. So one thing I encourage you to do is to get out there and get to know people, get to know organizations that are aligned with who you are and what you believe in and what you're studying, whether it's business or sports broadcasting. Are you studying again?
Either environmental or agriculture.
Okay. Yeah. So whatever it is, find experiences that you are here today, that you can learn from and grow from, and it might open another door. I mean, I had no idea I was going to end up in Nebraska. It was just one step at a time leading to the next thing down that path. You want to add anything about this?
The biggest thing is that you guys can be a part of any or multiple of these organizations. There's programs, there's pathways for you to get there, and so we can help navigate that for you as well. And so as Gina was saying, it's so important to find people who can advocate for you, whether it's an advisor, whether it's a fellow classmate, sometimes even an older classmate, someone who understands the process better. Sometimes it's our family, sometimes it's can be a professor. So yeah, there's all different types of people that can advocate for you, and we're definitely one of those people. So any of these things, if you're interested, we can help.
And this is just for like our little area here in Nebraska. We're not, suggesting that these will be your organizations or your schools, but just to get to know what is out there. And this is just a few of the many different support systems that we have. And I would add that a number of these offer scholarships and financial support. So when it comes back to financial wellness, one thing to keep in mind too is that there are so many different ways to find support and funding for what you want to do. So ask questions, talk to people, find out what's out there to support you, because we want you to be supported, we want you to be successful, and there's a huge group of people you don't even know that are rooting for you, that want to help, that are out there with resources too, and stories and teachings and experiences that can support you in your path. I don't know if this is very clear. Is anyone familiar with this artist, cartoonist, Ricardo Catay? He's from Kiwa, Pueblo, Santo Domingo, Pueblo in New Mexico. And he's a good friend of mine. This was the first piece of art that I purchased of his because it really resonated with me. It's a takeoff on The Simpsons, right? But it's basically what he's saying is this is what the Western Academy is expecting of us, right? We go into the classroom, look at how we're sitting. I come in here, I'm like, oh, what a circle. This is like how it's set up, right? It's different than what we're used to. And the assignments are different. Why do we have to have a written dissertation, a written thesis, a written paper? Why can't we do something orally? Why can't we share it a different way? Why can't we show what we've learned in our ways of knowing and our ways of doing, right? So this is what we're up against, but I encourage you to really own who you are, right? And work with the system. So it is negotiating, but find ways and be creative and work with your professors and your peers to integrate your ways of knowing and not just accept it. I mean, this just happened to me last night. I'm not even joking. Last night, I've been working with a group of women of color who wrote chapters about graduate school and their experiences from where they're from and what it was like getting through graduate school. And we all wrote these chapters, and it was just kind of like what we're talking about today, strategies, right, for how to get through and what have been our experiences and our challenges and the things that have helped us. And last night, the editor sent the cover. I wish I had the picture for you. The cover of the book. And it's like Native women and Black women and all different women. And the cover of the book was like the back of women's heads with graduation caps on and just like black hair that you couldn't really, nobody was identifiable. And I saw that and I thought, okay, this is done. This is what they said the cover is, and I just accepted it. And I noticed, right? I was like, there's noticeably no Native person on this cover, or not any noticeably Black woman on this cover. But you get used to these things and you just accept them, right? And I did that. And fortunately, another author wrote back and said, you know what? There's no identifiable Black woman on this cover, and there's no identifiable Native woman here. And now they're reconsidering it and bringing it back to the publishers. And why didn't I step up? It's like we're training our brains to work in this way, right? So push back, when we can, and share in a respectful way. But we can share what we notice and the way that we do things and see where it fits in. And sometimes it's not going to fit in, but sometimes we can actually carve our own new ways to, or new, that aren't new, right? But our ways that are new into the school system. So that's something that I really encourage you to do. And like Aislinn said, it's mentors and people who have gone before you who will help you with that. It's whether you're reading their stories in books, or talking with them, or going home, or praying about it, whatever it is that can help you do that, I encourage you to do that.
So one thing I wanted to add from what Gina said was, so this can be what you're up against, but also this can give you strength for all of you. Being who you are and thinking from your worldview. Like at UNMC, we have the I teach values, right? I stands for innovation. That's innovation, really. You guys already come equipped with innovation just from your worldview. Because what we know is that not a lot of Native students are going into, for example, healthcare. And we'll talk specifically about our program that would help you get into healthcare if you are interested. And that right there, it's like you said, it's not new, right? But it's new to that system, to academia.
Yeah. It's unique, it's innovative. It's
I mean, perspective.
Danielle, we were just at the Indigenous Research Association conference. There was an amazing Navajo scholar who did a whole presentation on her research is what can we learn from the Navajo horse. Do you know how to say it? She can say it, but I can't say
Say what?
the Navajo horse.
Navajo horse?
There's a
Like
there's
the
a
word.
part. But her question was, what can we learn from the Navajo horse about education and how we teach our students? How awesome is that? So she spent time with horses to learn from the horses what we can learn about teaching and knowing and being in relationship, right? And coming from maybe a hard place or whatever the horse's experience was. And this, to me, I mean, it's so exciting. And she kept saying, we knew this. We knew we learned from horses. You know, like this is nothing new, but to the Western Academy it is. It's new. So it's also exciting though, because then it becomes this unique, special area that you get to specialize in. Like it's part of who you are. It's part of bringing in who you are, what you believe, where you're from, and let that work its way into your schoolwork. I have no idea how we're doing on time. Are we okay? We got a few more minutes?
Yeah, a few more minutes.
Okay. So most of you have already done this, kind of identified your career path, and that will likely change in some ways over time. But I was excited to hear that all of you have an idea of where you're headed.
So I think with this image down here, what we wanted to get across is that there's not one pathway, right? So sometimes we think, okay, I want to do this. Like for me, when I was talking through my example of how I got to public health and studying environmental health specifically. So I went down many different paths to get there. If I talk to one of my advisors and mentors back at the University of Arizona, he was an engineer. And he had a totally different pathway of getting there.
Now she's got to be.
Yeah, there's all these different things, and sometimes we're doing things and we're not always sure, like, I don't know how this is going to get me there, like, you might think I'm totally lost, but then later come back and find, no, I was totally on the right path for myself.
It's all
And that was all a part of the process. It all made sense in the end.
So things to just keep in mind is really what gives you purpose and meaning. What's meaningful to you. And that's why I say, like, it's so important that who you are is meaningful, where you're from. Your family, your history, your culture, your tradition. That's meaningful. So how can that encourage you and guide you down this path and making these choices? I encourage you to keep that in mind. These are some of our. So Aislinn and I work with the Youth Enjoy Science program at UNMC that funds students, we have paid internships in research, but in different kinds of research. So some students are doing research in indigenous gardening. So because that promotes health and wellness, right? It all technically is related to cancer, but everything's related. So that's how we look at it, right? That's how we frame it. It's all related. So in the public health department, we have students who are working on portraiture and skin cancer, a student who's been interviewing her mom, she's Osage Nation, and then doing portraits of her mom. Cool, thanks. And Bobby's not up there. And then we have gardening, we have students who are working in labs, so that's my niece up in the left corner, Hannah, she's actually at Arizona State. So we've partnered with Arizona State and U of A, and we have students there and students here that are doing research and asking questions that they want to know, like what does the Navajo Horse teach us about education, right? So we're helping our students ask questions and answer those questions, and then in some way it needs to be related to cancer, but through that, the National Cancer Institute and the National Institutes of Health is funding this work, which is really exciting.
I think something to add to that. So we know, right? I think we often hear about genetics in cancer. We think about breast cancer and the BRCA genes. There's two specifically that we'll focus a lot on, and knowing our genetic predisposition. However, we know that I want to say 75% of all cancers are caused by environmental exposures, whether that be skin cancer with sun or maybe specific contaminants in our environment like nitrates, which is a big issue here and is related to agriculture and is in our Ogallala aquifer, which is a huge aquifer. We know it's in our surface waters. In Omaha, our water comes from surface waters, from rivers. So when you have these kinds of things, right, it is all related. It truly is, and we don't really know, and we don't know about these environmental exposures and how that contributes. And so that's why it is so important that we have students that are bringing in this research, because focusing only on the labs, which is really about genetics and looking at tumor tissues and all these kind of things, we're missing the big picture, right? And so that's why it's so important that you, as Indigenous scholars, Indigenous researchers, come into these research areas. The other big thing with cancer, why cancer is so important for Native Americans, is that for all races, including whites, we see that it's going down.
Cancer death rates are going down. They have gone down over the decades.
Native Americans, it's going up. And why is that? And if we think about it, if we think about environmental health in particular, the connection to culture, to land, to food, right? This is really important.
And this is what the community is asking about too. So we did a big community readiness assessment about addressing cancer, and these are the questions. Like, everyone was interested in the environmental influence on cancer.
Like in New Mexico and on the Navajo Nation in Arizona actually, they just stopped this uranium, but then the uranium mining was getting into the water and the wells and the water tables. So now a lot of Navajo elders, they died of cancer, which we never really had before colonization and whatever. Right? So right now it's just being passed down generation to generation because it's already in their body. They have kids and they're already in the kids, and it's often mining or stuff that we weren't used to.
Right.
Yes. So one important part of that.
Thank you for sharing that. And that's a common story, it's a common story, amongst many tribal territories. So one in urban communities too.
Yeah, and specific to that, so U of A, I think, and NAU has partnered with Union College now, and they got a large grant from EPA to try to clean that up. But one important piece of that story too is when uranium was originally come in during, I believe it was World War II, they did not have a word for radiation in Diné language. And so they did not explain to people that lived and worked in those mines, lived near those mines, worked in those mines even, that radiation was an issue. And so people weren't even aware of what happened. And that's not that long ago.
No.
It's really not. There's still so much to do.
There's still so much to understand. There's so much I don't understand. So much is how do we communicate that? And there's the whole field of health literacy,
Mm-hmm.
But real quick, I know we just have a minute left. I wanted to just say that this is Hannah up in the corner, that's my niece up here at the gardens. And then Audrey Bavari, who has been doing research on pancreatic cancer in our lab. Mariah Abney, who was working in the lab, and now she's working in public health with the Indigenous Gardens, doing research on that. In the center, you can probably recognize Alec, who was here yesterday.
You know more about what she's
Yeah, so he's actually working with me on a citizen science project, and so citizen science is basically the idea that anybody can be a scientist, in particular looking at water sampling, and so we're looking at water quality and the surface water surrounding our Omaha, which contribute to our drinking water. And so he's working with middle school students kind of as a mentor to help advise them through that process, and those middle school students will be conducting sampling on those rivers.
And then we have Renee and Gracie and Marissa Bathurst, who is some of our summer program students that came, and we have a summer health professions camp that introduces students to health professions all across the board, whether it's medicine or physical therapy or nursing or dentistry, and they actually come here to UNL too. But that's something that we also implement our students were involved in. This is our program if anyone's interested. Danielle Keeler, Conga, with the artists, created our mission statement as an image, so that's associated with our program. But we'd love to hear from you if you're interested in learning more about that. We talk through some of these are some of the things we do. Here we are. Here are our scholars. You'll recognize Alec. But again, that's Bobby, who's doing the portraiture of skin cancer. Maya, Paula, Erica, and Alex, right? Yep, Alex. And then, so Alex is now at UNO. Audrey, I believe, is also at UNO now. Bobby's from UNO. Alex goes to Creighton. Erica here, she is actually goes to Oklahoma College. And Tada, I think, also goes there. But they also have a program, I believe, with South Dakota. I mean, I think it's USD, where you can do, like, it's like a pathway program, so you can do some of your courses at Oklahoma Lakota College and then go to USD. And students can come for, like, the reason why I don't know Tada is because I was off getting married, and she came for just like a few weeks in the summer. So we do like long term over the course of the year, a few hours here and there, or come and stay for a while. Yeah, yeah. So actually, I'm gonna go back really quick. So Erica was working on an epidemiology study, and so what she was looking at is how non-alcoholic liver disease contributes to liver cancer. And so she was working somewhat in a lab, but also looking at secondary data. So she was working on a public health project. And epidemiology is a study of disease, so it's a little bit different, but it's an area in public health. And then Tada was working in a cancer lab as well, where she was looking at how different treatments may work better with specific cancers. Cool. And right now we're studying facilitators and barriers for specifically Native students. So we've been working with students from NICC actually, and other colleges and UNO and our high school NICE students to find out what does help students specific to health professions, but moving through academic career pathways. So when we get that information out, we'll share that with you in the center. Thank you for everyone for your participation and for sharing this time with us and letting us talk with you. It's really good to know you. I hope